There's been some great games released just recently, and in this video, I'm going to pick out some of their features which I think Bioware should learn from and implement in the next Mass Effect game. Welcome back, Commander. Unless you've been living under a rock these past few months, we've had two big games released that have shaken up the gaming landscape and raised the bar for future titles. Now, I'm of course talking about Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. So what can Bioware take from these games to make the next Mass Effect game even better? Mass Effect should go deeper with its RPG elements. In Mass Effect 1, skills and talents were prominently featured, requiring you to invest points into weapons or speech, etc. Mass Effect 2 really cut back on this, and in Mass Effect 3 it was a nice fusion between the two. However, there's still a lot more that can be done with it. Baldur's Gate 3 leans heavy into the character builds, allowing you to completely fine-tune how you want your character to be. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 works on a Dungeons & Dragons system, and I'm not suggesting for Mass Effect. We don't need to dice roll every time we want to take an action. However, they should take the best bits from it, expanding the character progression to include a broader array of skills and abilities, allowing players to specialise in unique playstyles, such as stealth or diplomacy, or combat expertise. Upgrading the dynamic dialogue system that factors in character traits, past decisions and relationships to provide more nuanced and personalised interactions. Can you imagine doing a complete stealth playthrough, or even just talking your way out of a fight? This leads nicely to my next point. Both Starfield and Baldur's Gate allows you to choose your own characters. In the character creator, you get the opportunity to effectively place yourself into the game. Well, you know, with probably pointy ears and crazy hair. Now you're probably thinking, well, I can do that in Mass Effect. But with Mass Effect, it's always been somebody else's story. In Mass Effect Trilogy, it was Shepard's story, and in Mass Effect Andromeda, it was Ryder's story. Yes, granted, you can change their first name and their look, but players like to be the character. So let them be the character. Let them forge their own story in the Mass Effect universe. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be like a massive open world, and we'll get onto that a bit later on in the video, but just being a complete random person is enabling a more personal connection to the story and the game world. This ensures that players' experience is distinctively their own. Speaking of player experience, choice and consequence has always been a big part of Mass Effect franchise, and although it was quite nice to see some of your choices play out over the three games, this is something that not only Baldur's Gate and also Witcher 3 did extremely well. Making small choices that don't have an instant payoff, they wait until hours later in the game. Not only does this stop the save scumming, but it also has a ton of replayability. Baldur's Gate and The Witcher show that even the smallest choices can have far-reaching consequences. There was a huge news cycle not so long back about an off-the-cuff comment journalists made about Mass Effect ditching Andromeda's open world and going back to basics. Now, I made a video on it, why it wasn't news story, which I'll link at the end of this video. But the premise is actually quite sound. Going back to basics is a good idea. Mass Effect 2 and 3 were more story-driven and had no opportunity for exploration. Andromeda tried to do it, but they didn't quite get it right. Starfield has taken a completely different approach, where you can pop down to any location on a planet, and it produces a map based on your location. I think a mixture of the three games, Mass Effect 1, Andromeda and Starfield, would work much better. Have hub worlds, but then maybe 3 or 4 other locations that you can travel to on that world. Those locations can be handcrafted and have interesting places to discover. These could also be optional, so if the player just wants to focus on games like Mass Effect 2 and 3, where you have the story-driven hub worlds, you could play the entire game and just go to those places. If then you are inclined to do some exploring, you could tie in some side quests, maybe that lead into the main story. These would give people incentive to go exploring, but not make it mandatory. Not many people like the Mako. Not me, I loved it. Admittedly, the Nomad was a lot better to drive, but it was missing its main cannon. Starfield dropped the ball here, and although they probably didn't want players to reach the edge of the map so quickly, having them run everywhere is very, very frustrating. Well, the low gravity planet's quite fun, I must admit. Mass Effect 5 should give us back the Mako, with the Nomad's customization features and a bloody great big gun. The Mass Effect trilogy was great at being able to bring your Shepard through all three games, and it was truly special. However, making something on that scale is incredibly hard, plus having all the choices and the permutations of those choices flowing through all 3 games can lead to disappointment. So instead of trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle, make it easy for themselves. Give us a Baldur's Gate 3 size game, set it into 3 acts if it needs to be, and have the story concluded after plus 80 odd hours. They already do something similar with the Dragon Age franchise, where each game isn't directly tied, but there is a running theme. Go along those kind of lines. They already have the Mass Effect archive so that you can preserve your game states and your game worlds, and there's nothing saying that you couldn't import your created character into any future games if the story deems that they're still alive. But at least this way, we're not going to be waiting 5 years for one story to be told. This is something that Starfield does extremely well, and something that Mass Effect can certainly learn from. Now, I'm not saying to take it directly from Starfield. After all, the Normandy wouldn't be so iconic if it didn't look like the ship everyone recognises. However, the interior could be redesigned by the player to suit their playstyle. Are you a gunsmith who likes to go headfirst into a firefight? Well, boost your weapon skills by having an armory and a weapons bench. Maybe you want to be a bit more sneaky, then have a tech lab and create some gadgets for sneaking missions. Maybe you prefer leading a squad and having a training room to improve their skills, that sort of thing. Mass Effect is now able to wipe the slate clean and start afresh. And from the games that you've played recently, what would you like them to adopt? Let me know down in the comments. And if you thought going back to basics was a big news story, then guess again, because it really isn't. And you can see why in the video that's on screen now. Don't forget to hit that like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Commander.